changing my words. I've already said 3 times or 4 times that you've asked me that
The first
question.
thing you said.
I agree with you. Hello. Glad you had a nice weekend. You keep talking about Trump's pardoning these violent people in the January 6th. Are you aware of the man from your home state in Connecticut, Andrew Miller, who killed an 8-year-old child and his mother that Biden pardoned?
So we're going to do whataboutism again. JD, no. Hold on. I'll answer your question. First of all, if you actually listen to this show every day, which I know you do, I've criticized and called out Joe Biden for his pardons. I've also said that I don't think presidents should have the power of pardons, but I do find it interesting that every single time I criticize Donald Trump, you're the first person to call in to talk about Joe Biden. So, JD, here's the deal. Even though I've addressed that, and I don't agree with any of those pardons, in the first few days of Donald Trump in office, he has pardoned violent criminals. So I want to know, you are the person who said, when you called into this show a few weeks ago, you made a promise, and you said if he does pardon violent criminals on January 6th, which you said you didn't agree with, that you would call into the show and call them out for it. But instead, you called into this show and decided to talk about Joe Biden. So why are you a liar, JD?
You asked me how I felt about that, and I answered
and you
the question,
said that,
and I said I don't like him pardoning violent criminals.
But the first thing that you did, JD, is you wanted to bring up a pardon of Joe Biden. It's called whataboutism. And not only
no, it's not.
Yes,
no,
it is.
Not.
The topic today is Donald Trump. Excuse me. The president of the United States is Donald Trump. You said a few weeks ago that you would call out Donald Trump on this show if he pardoned violent criminals from January 6th. And the first thing you utter out of your mouth when talking about those pardons is not to address Donald Trump. It's not to address those despicable pardons, but to talk about Joe Biden. Guess what, JD? Joe Biden is not the president anymore. Donald Trump is. And in the last week, he decided to pardon over 600 violent criminals on January 6th, those who beat police officers. But you want to talk about Joe Biden. He's decided to ban transgenders from serving on the battlefield. He has decided that it's going to be okay for people like you to spend more money on pharmaceutical drugs. He signed an executive order, but you still want to talk about Joe Biden. And every single time Donald Trump does something wrong or says something terrible or makes a terrible decision, are you going to talk about Joe Biden on this show, or are you going to talk about the current president? I want to know.
Well, I got one sentence out. I'm just trying to make a comparison where
there is no comparison.
Trump hasn't pardoned any FBI killers like he did in Leonard Pelletier, 2
Donald
FBI
Trump,
agents.
there you go again. It's like this guy has bird for brains and he can't listen. Donald Trump has also pardoned murderers. I've talked about that on this show, which obviously you are either ignorant to or so biased you won't talk about it. He literally pardoned people who killed innocent Iraqi civilians. He pardoned those people in his first administration. So I'm not going to play this whataboutism game for you. And by the way, there is no moral equivalence between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Joe Biden's never been convicted of a crime. He's never been found liable for sexual abuse. There is no moral equivalency between the orange turd that you voted for and Joe Biden. So are you going to remain on topic, or are you just going to play whataboutism every single time Donald Trump does something despicable? And pardoning violent criminals on January 6th, JD, is despicable. Why can't you say that? It's horrible. Why can't you admit it?
Well, first of all, violent criminals and murderers are 2 different things. 2 FBI agents. And
there he goes again.
State,
you are not capable, are you? You are not capable of, by the way, a violent crime can be considered murder, okay? Violent crime is murder, so I have no idea what the hell you are talking about. And you keep going back to Joe Biden. You are not capable of saying what Donald Trump did was horrible. He should not have pardoned those who beat police officers and were convicted of seditious conspiracy. Why can't you say that? You're like a broken record. Why won't you repeat after me? Because I know you know it's wrong, because you admitted it a few weeks ago that if he said it, you would call it out, which you're not doing now. Why can't you admit it was not just wrong, but despicable for those who attacked Capitol Police on January 6th to be pardoned? That question has nothing to do with Joe Biden. It has nothing to do with Democrats, and it has everything to do with the news of this week. Why won't you admit what he did was wrong?
Why are you changing my words? I've already said 3 times or 4 times that you've asked me that question.
The first thing you said,
I agree with you.
The first thing you said on this show, JD, was not saying, listen.
That has nothing to do with your question.
No, it does. It has everything to do with it, because the topic is Donald Trump's pardons, not Joe Biden's pardons. But the first thing you did was say, well, what about? That's the first. Now, if the first thing you said was, let me give you a lesson, JD, on people that I'll respect and people I don't respect. For example, the first thing you said was, Brian, I agree with you. I called you a few weeks ago. I was hoping you wouldn't pardon the violent criminal. He did. I think it's despicable. I think it's wrong. I did disagree with a lot of the pardons of Joe Biden. I would agree with you, JD, and I would say, you're right. Thank you for your honesty. But the first thing you do, like so many other MAGA clowns that call into this show, and yes, JD, you are a MAGA clown. The first thing you want to do is talk about Joe Biden. The first thing you want to do is talk about Joe Biden's pardons. The first thing you don't say is his pardons, the January 6th insurrectionists and those who committed terrible crimes were terrible. That is your way of thinking. You're always looking for an excuse to defend Donald Trump.